Welcome to part 6 of my Piggy series. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to add a map voting system to your game. So firstly, you're going to need to create a GUI for the map voting. Now, to save some time again, I'm going to publish this as its own model. So head to the description, take the model, and then you'll be able to insert it via the toolbox. So into the toolbox, click on the grid, head to My Models, and insert the Map Voting Kit, which you should have taken. Then, if you just drag this into your main GUI, I'm going to close the toolbox, so make sure it's in main GUI, and then what you're going to need to do is, for all of the maps that you have, if you go inside of the map voting frame and you go inside the grid frame, you'll see that we've got a UI grid layout, and that arranges all of the GUI elements inside of the grid into a grid. So I've got two buttons in here because I've added a second map. Now this will only work obviously if you have more than 2 maps. So if you've only got 1 map at the minute, I wouldn't suggest adding this, although you can do, and you can use a second model as a test. So the more maps that you add, just duplicate another image button and it will add it to the grid. And the more you add, the more it will put together. So when you create a new map, you need to name the image button. So this image button, it needs to be the exact same name as your map. So if you've got a map which you've added, I need to actually add a second one called Chapter 2. But if you were to add another one, you wanted to call it Epic Chapter, then you'd have to name your image button Epic Chapter. So you need to have these in place before you start the game or publish the game. These need to be in place. And then you don't need to do anything else. Keep the names of the text labels the same, but you can change the chapter name text to the name of your map. So Epic Chapter. And we can say that that is Chapter 3. Okay, so once you've done that, we're going to select Map Voting and set the visible property to false. Now we're going to create another local script in the main GUI, and this is going to be for our map voting. I'm going to name this Client Map Voting. And inside of here, I'm firstly going to loop through all of the image buttons in our grid frame. So we're going to create a variable for that grid frame. I'm going to call it local vote grid. Then I'm going to loop through everything inside that folder. So for I, V in pairs, vote grid, get children, do. We need to make sure that we're selecting only the image buttons and not the UI grid layout. So if V is a image button, and also that there is a map in the chapters folder of the same name, game.replicatedStorage.chapters find first child v.name, because the name of the image button needs to be the same as the name of the map. Then, and what we'll do is we'll set up a mouse button one click event. So when the image button is clicked, connect function, we're going to fire our remote event to tell the server that we've placed our vote. So go into replicated storage, insert a remote event, and call it place vote. Then we're going to say game.replicatedStorage.placeVote fire server. And we need to tell the server the name of the map that we're voting for. So the name of the image button, v.name. When you've done that, we can now head into a server script to handle the voting part. So I'm going to go into server script service, into the event handling. In fact, no, we're going to go into the game logic, into the round module, and I'm going to edit the map selection script. Okay, so again, if you've only got 1 map at the minute, I would leave the random selection until you've got another map. So this is only going to work well if you have more than 1 map, else everyone's going to be voting for the same one. But to make the map voting work, we're going to remove that, and we're going to firstly create a big table to contain all of the votes for each map. Then we're going to loop through all of the chapters in the game and create a sub-table inside that big table for that specific map. So the final table will look something like this. And inside each table will be the names of the people that voted. Like this. And then you can see which table has the most votes. So, what we'll do is we will say for I, V in pairs, game.replicatedStorage.chapters get children. So looping through all of the chapters in the game, and we're going to create a subtable inside the big table. And that's very simple. We just say votes, and in square brackets, the name of the map, which is going to be the name of the subtable, and we're just going to set it to a blank table. Then, when we get a place vote request from the client through that remote event, we can add the player's name to that table. So very simple, we just need to set up a connection, an event connection called local place vote connection. We're creating a connection so we can disconnect it when the voting time is up so that we can stop the votes from coming in. And we're going to create that remote event. So game.replicatedStorage.placeVote. When we get a Fire server, we can pick that up with the player and the map name, which we got sent as a parameter. Then we're going to end it with a closing bracket, and after 15 seconds, we're going to disconnect that connection, so people won't be able to send in their votes, because we're no longer listening to the remote event. Now, when we get that place vote, we need to firstly check if there is an actual table in the big table with the map's name. So if votes map name, then if there is that table for that map, then we're going to loop through all of the different map tables in that big table to see if they've voted before, and we're going to remove their vote. So the V value will be the player votes tab. For each map. In pairs, we're looping through the votes table, so the player votes tab will be the individual table for each map, so the chapter 1 table, chapter 2 table, etc. So we need to then loop through that player votes table. We're going to use a different I value so we don't overwrite it. For X, well, not to overwrite, but just so that we can have different names so we don't get confused for those values. So for X, and then player name is going to be the value in that table that we'll be looking at for each player. In pairs, player votes tab do. We're going to need to check to see if the player name that's in that table is equal to the player object's name, so player.name. So if we found the player that's trying to place a vote, if we found that they've already placed a vote in another table, we need to remove it. So we're going to say table.remove player votes tab. We're going to remove from the current player votes table, we're going to remove that index value of that player, because the X is the index value, the counter of where that player's vote is stored within the chapter votes table, and we're removing it. Then we're going to break out of the for loop because we're no longer looking for it. We're breaking out of this for loop here. And that will run for the rest of the chapters in case for some reason they have another vote somewhere else. So that will remove their vote from the table if they've already voted for a certain map. Now we need to add their vote into the new table that they want to vote for. So very simple, table.insert, and we're going to say the votes table, we want to insert it into that specific map table, and we're going to insert the player's name like that. And there we go. Now, when somebody has voted, we need to update the GUI to show the new number of votes for all players. So we're going to create another remote event. I'm going to call this remote event. Whoops, I added a folder. I'm going to insert a remote event. I'm going to call it update vote count. Okay, and then if we go into the client script again, we can just set up a very simple connection event for this. So we will say game.replicatedStorage.update vote count on client event connect function, and we're going to send the votes table to the player, and we'll just pick it up with an argument called data. And if we just go back to the round module, what we can do is we can say game.replicatedStorage.update vote count, fire all clients, and we're going to send the big votes table so we can decode it and get the information about the number of votes for each map on the client. Next, what we need to do is create a value in replicated storage, and this value is going to be a bool value, and it's going to be called map voting. And this is so that if you're in the menu, and because we don't want to show the voting GUI if you're in the menu, so when you press the menu button, we can check to see if map voting is currently happening, and if it is currently happening, then we can show you the map vote GUI. We'll get to that in just a little bit later on, but what we'll do is before the wait 15 starts, we'll set this value to be true, and then after 15 seconds we'll set it to be false, so that we can tell other scripts that the map voting has now finished. Now, we need to work out, after the 15 seconds, which map got the most votes. So we're going to need to loop through the big table, but we're going to create two variables. One for the most votes, the number of most votes, and the most voted map. So local most votes, and we're going to set that to nil for now, and local most voted is also going to be nil. Then we're going to loop through the big map table. So for I, and then each individual table within that votes table, will be called map table. And so for each individual table, for each map, we need to count the number of votes that they've had. So the local votes are going to be the number of objects within that map table. So because we're inserting the player's name into each table, then there's going to be two objects if there's two votes for a map. So this votes variable will tell us how many votes that map has had. Now we need to check if most votes is nil to begin with, because it could be the first map that we're checking. So if it is, we'll set the most votes to the current amount of votes, and the most voted will obviously be the index of this table, because it's the first one we've checked. But if there currently is a map with the most votes, it might be the next time that it loops around, we need to check if the number of votes is greater than or equal to the current most votes. And if it is, then we're going to change the most votes to be the vote count of this map, and the most voted will be the index of this map table. So we have updated the most votes value to the map, because we've seen that it's got a greater vote count than the one that currently has the most votes. So now what we can do is, outside of this for loop, we need to firstly check to see if after we've gone through all maps that most votes, if it's nil, or if most voted is nil, then if no votes have been recorded, then we're just going to select a map randomly, which is what we've been doing before. So we can just firstly create a chosen chapter variable, and if there are no votes, we will select a random map, which is the code that we've done before. It's taking a random map out of replicated storage. Else, if there have been votes recorded, then we're going to just say chosen chapter equals game.replicatedStorage.chapters, and we're going to get the most voted. Because this I, it's not actually going to be an index count, it's going to be the name of the map, because it's the key. Now when you have a table inside, when we've set it up like we have here, we can't go back, but the I part is going to be the name of the map, because when we inserted all of the subtables, we gave the table its name was going to be the name of the map. So the I part is the name of the map. So the most voted is going to be the name of the map. So we can just say game.replicatedstories.chapters and in square brackets put most voted. And most voted will be the name of the map with the most votes. And then what we can do is say status.value equals chosen chapter.name has been selected with ... toString most votes to print out the amount of votes that it got. We can do a wait 5 seconds and then we'll return the chosen chapter back to the game logic script. So what we've got to do now is we need to code the remote event, which is going to make the GUI appear and then go off screen again. So we'll insert another remote event here, and I'm going to call it toggle map vote. Now, if we go back to client map voting, and we'll leave this update vote count for a second, but we're going to we're just going to copy this line and put it in again. We're going to change update vote count to say toggle map vote. And we're going to have an argument to be the visibility, so whether it's true or false. So then we can firstly check to see if the player isn't in the menu, because we don't want to show it if they're in the menu. So if not game.players.localPlayer find first child in menu, then script.parent.mapVoting.visible equals visibility, because script.parent is the main GUI and we've now got this map voting frame in there. So if you get an error, check that you've got the map voting frame in your main GUI. So this will now make the GUI appear or disappear when we call it from the server. So we need to go back to the round module, and now we can firstly, at the top of the script, at the top of the function, we can say game.replicatedStorage.toggleMapVote : fire all clients and true to make it visible. And then later on, just after the 15 seconds, when we set the map voting value in replicated storage back to false, we're going to fire it again, but set it to false. So make sure you've changed the true to the false. Now all that's left to do is to loop through the data that we've sent to the update vote count function, and then we will just update the votes text label in the chapter image button. So I'm going to show you how you can do that right now. So if you think the data argument is going to be the main votes table, then the I is going to be the name of the map, and the V is going to be the value attached to it, which is going to be that table full of players. So we can firstly check to see if there is a image button in our vote frame grid with the chapter name. So there is obviously chapter 1, chapter 2, and epic chapter. So if there is a image button there, then it's going to set the text of the vote text label to the number of objects within that table. So if there are 2 in that table for chapter 1, then we're going to update the image button's votes text to be 2. Lastly, if we go into the client main script, just so that we can make the voting GUI appear when you click the play button. So let's imagine someone's in the game and they've joined after the map voting screen has shown up for all players, but they then press the play button midway through voting and we need to make it show up for them. So what we're going to do is in the intro.play function event, we're going to say if game.replicatedStorage.mapVoting.value equals true, so that we know that a vote is currently in progress. So if there is a vote currently in progress, then we're going to say script.parent.mapVoting.visible equals true, and we should be good to go. Okay, here we are, and we are the voting has started, so I'm going to say vote 3. So hopefully he'll change his vote to chapter 3. There we go. And it says epic chapter has been selected with 1 vote. Brilliant. And then the round begins. I'm going to actually run some code to kill everybody so we can start a new round. Cool, awesome. So we can just start another round. And this time, we're going to vote for Chapter 2. So hopefully everyone votes for Chapter 2 here. It does keep the stats from the previous round. So if you voted for Chapter 3, it will start off saying 1 vote for Chapter 3. But then when someone votes, it will reset. So there we go. It says Chapter 2 has been selected with 4 votes. Brilliant. Now let's try and balance the votes. If we can. Oh. Okay. Hopefully it stays balanced. And it selected Epic Chapter. And if there are 2 maps with the same amount of votes, it will basically just randomly choose them because it will just be the first one it finds, which has the most. It will be the last one, I think, actually, that it loops through if it has the same amount of votes, because it will update the most voted to that map. So it doesn't really matter, because if they have the same amount of votes anyway, it will be random. So shout out everyone that just came along and helped me test it out. So Kaio, Panaccioni, Dynamysticality, GGD Savage, Log P 12346, Mr. Crazy GG123, Nick Drew 77, Swag Fam, TTF, and Zyper Q. Alright, so now what you could do as a way to stop the votes appearing and to reset them when the map voting GUI comes back on the screen is doing something like this. So in the toggle map vote, you could say for I, v in pairs, script dot parents, the vote grid, get children, do if the find first child votes, then the .votes.text equals 0, but in a string like this. And then whenever you fired from the server, toggle map votes, if you watch closely, there was 5 votes. Imagine that was the old votes. When that next got fired, if we just open up the map voting again, it gets reset. So there we go. So that's how you add map voting to your Piggy game. Now, there won't be any more uploads on this series for a while because I've pretty much finished it off now. Might add some more features in the future, and I will keep supporting it. But as I said, I'm going to take a break and do some other videos. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the series so far, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.